Thank you for joining us on the Going Deeper podcast, a ministry of Fathom Church in Littleton, Colorado. You will never get to the bottom of the depths that are in Christ for you. And our hope with this podcast is that it will help you go deeper with God. So let's dive into this episode of the Going Deeper podcast. What's up, everyone? This is your host, Kyle Knight, and welcome to the Going Deeper podcast. Again, conversations we love to have here at Fathom Church to hopefully help you go deeper in your relationship with God on different topics. We are here in the podcast studio with Karina Bost.
Hey.
Hello, Karina. And Chris Martin. Hello, Chris.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
This is my international. I sometimes introduce things with other languages.
Yeah.
Most notably Spanish, because it's the only
With
one I
other-
really know how to say hi in. But it does lead to my little question here before our less serious question. It's World Cup season every 4
Sure
years,
is.
and in this case 4.5 years. We get to celebrate the international world's game of soccer or football, depending on where you want to stand on that debate. But here's
soccer.
So the U.S. is out. USA lost this past weekend. This will come out this week, so I'm actually we're actually talking about this kind of live. And people love the World Cup. I love the World Cup. But one of my friends on Instagram, who's a pastor somewhere else, I can't remember where, but he posted after the U.S. won. He said, "All right, now Americans can stop being soccer fans for the next 4 years," which is
True.
largely true. I mean, there's some who follow soccer, and then there are many who just watch the World Cup and specifically watch 3 or 4 games of the World Cup, which is the U.S. playing. This was my question. What sport would you say you are a fair weather or bandwagon fan for? I'm not talking like die hard, but I'm just saying, like, if it's on, you're excited about it. When they start sucking, you're off the bandwagon, and or maybe it's soccer. It's like, hey, every 4 years I care about this thing, and then I don't care again. But I'd love to know, deep kind of psychologically revealing question, where are your weakest allegiances, and yet you would kind of jump on the bandwagon?
Can you say the Olympics?
Sure. I wouldn't say
that's
all of
every-
I mean, that's a large
that's
a
literally every
genre.
4 years.
I mean,
that's
like that's like saying I like sports
right.
every 2 years in the winter and every 2 years,
That's a good question. I like a lot of sports, so that's a tough question.
I think
You
for
can
me,
go.
it's baseball, the Rockies. I will go to a Rockies game in person and
Mhm.
enjoy it and cheer for the Rockies.
Right.
But I will not sit at home and watch them on my TV. I will not even follow, like, are they winning or losing?
Do you know of any? Can you name any players on the Rockies?
I can name older players.
No, I'm not. I don't care about older players.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
That's my.
can you name any current players on the Rockies?
You can tell Chris likes the Rockies.
I know.
Well, there's very few things I don't like.
Wait, the question was like fair weather. Like, she doesn't have to know.
No, that's
Is Charlie Blackmon still playing?
yes, he is.
Oh, okay.
You
I got one.
Okay, good job.
That would literally be the only one that I know.
That's okay. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a hater on fair weather fans. I'm really not. Like, that's not my
Mhm.
thing. Like, I think it's fun to be a fan when it's fun.
Mhm.
And then like let's be real. Nobody likes the Broncos right now. I mean,
Totally.
Russell Wilson doesn't even like the Broncos right now.
That's true.
I mean, it's not fun. And I'll just complete honesty. This is the first week I haven't watched them.
Hmm.
And
Yesterday you didn't watch
I
them?
did not watch
You
them.
didn't watch them? World Cup.
I watched the World Cup
Yeah,
instead.
okay.
I watch countries
That's
that I don't
fine.
care
Yeah,
about
That's true.
play soccer rather than watch football.
That's when you know your
Yeah.
football team is
So I appreciate the Rockies fandom
Mhm.
right there. Yeah. Okay. Kyle, what's yours?
See, I would agree with that. I mean, Rockies, just baseball in general. I think I might sit and watch a playoff game here and there just because it's like playoffs of any sport, I think I can kind of get into it. I do think college basketball is one of them.
Yeah.
Because
like every
college
March,
basketball,
it's like,
it's seriously March Madness is awesome. March Madness is cool. If you're just into it for fun and you fill out a bracket and you watch a bunch of games, they're on all day for weeks. That's pretty cool. But do I watch a game during the regular season? Probably not, unless my CU buffs are decent, and they're not. So,
Right. Okay.
so that would probably be it. But again, like I just like sports in general. So any sports that when it comes like the college football playoffs, like I'm really excited about it, even though I have no dog in that fight. I like playoffs of any sport. I just think it's better. But baseball, but also college basketball.
Okay. That's great.
What about yours?
Yeah, I really like sports at times too much. And so I find myself fluctuating. I'm not fully fair weather with like, the Rockies and the Avs and the Nuggets. Like I will follow them, probably not uber. I'm not watching every game of every one of
Yeah,
those.
but you're pretty good. Like
I keep
go to
up.
Nuggets games.
I keep up. I keep up.
Yeah,
on
you definitely
things.
keep up.
I will say all college sports. I am just fleeting. And I think it's because I didn't go to a big school and didn't have that. Go CCU. Come on, Cougars. Come on, Cougs. Go Cougs. But so like college football, I mean, I like Air Force because I was raised in Colorado Springs and went to a ton of games. And they played well this year, so that's great. But I'm not following. I couldn't tell you who's on the Air Force Falcons football team. So same with college basketball. I'm the same way. Like I just don't. I know guys in the South who dig on college football, and it's like life or death. And it's just not my thing.
Down there.
It's just like. But I just want you to know I do follow soccer all the time. So yeah. So the next 4 years are going to be great.
I mean,
the next 4 years are going to be great. Yeah.
I will say I follow soccer never. I follow soccer players, high school, maybe college. Haley's friends. Other than that, I don't follow soccer at all, even in the Olympics or World Cup.
Wow.
Did you know USA lost?
Yes. Because Chris said it.
It's over now. There's no point in watching it. It's
all right. This banter is going on too long.
It is going on too long.
Let's turn the corner.
Hey, so as you can see by the title of this episode, we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite topic: money.
Money.
Thank you, Chris. Money. We'll get it. Money, kind of generosity. Also, like tithe. I feel like when churches discuss money, it usually has to do with like it's either in a sermon, a giving sermon. It's about giving. It's about tithing. We're talking budgets, all that kind of fun stuff that nobody really likes to talk about. But also, so we'll kind of get into a little bit about that, but really talking about money, talking about what the Bible says about money. Is money okay to have? Is having a lot of money okay to have? Generosity, what that looks like in our lives, being good stewards of our money, the things that we are blessed with. We're going to be talking about a lot of that stuff, but I guess let's first start out with we hear that we kind of hear the saying that like money is the cause of all evil or whatever like that. I know there is a scripture that we have that talks about that. But Chris, let's start out with is money evil? Is having too much money evil? Is being rich bad? Let's just kind of start there.
Yeah, I think that's good to start let's start high level, like money itself. Is it good or bad? And I would say the answer is neither. Like it's neutral, right? Like money itself is a tool. It's a technology. Actually, technically that's what that is. It's something that humans have developed to make life easier so that you don't have to barter and bring lambs to trade for loaves of bread, or I don't know what they were bartering. One basket of corn for like a blouse. I don't know. Like that's what are you doing before there's currency? Yeah, you're trading.
Shroot bucks.
Yeah. Shroot bucks. Yeah, that's currency, Kyle.
Yeah.
Same thing. So
is it currency?
Yes.
No.
Yes, it is. But I think money itself is neutral. Money itself is not. It's neither evil nor is it good. But it certainly is something that has been used historically. Obviously, for millennia, people have used some sort of currency as an exchange for goods and services, and that can be either leveraged for good or leveraged for evil purposes, nefarious activities, etc. So I think we can just kind of from the outset say money's all right. Right.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, any disagreement on that one? Right.
No,
Okay.
no
Oh,
disagreement.
you're good. Yeah.
So I think the next question though, then is the heavier question, which is, like what is there any sort of moral or ethical association with the quantity of money that one possesses?
Mm.
That's kind of that next level is like,
Mhm.
okay, should you want it? How much of it should you want? At what point is there enough? At what point is there not enough? And how is it directly or indirectly equivalent for a follower of Christ to one's maturity level?
Mhm.
So I don't know what, Karina, when you think about like that money question, it's like, should I want it? How much of it should I want? Like what kind of things go through your mind in that one?
Yeah, well, as you were talking, I think we think of the New Testament references like the evil of money or whatever, but actually we look back in the Old Testament and like we see that Abraham was blessed by God. I mean, there wasn't finances per se, but he was blessed with money, with
material
with
wealth.
material wealth, and even like King David and King Solomon, they were blessed. So we can see that it's not like God doesn't use that in people's lives. But I think when we start organizing our life around how we spend money and how, like, you could go either way. Like, I'm constantly just saving all my money. It's all about me, or either like how fast can I spend it? So yeah, I think it's like that mindset of like when you go into spending money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus tells a parable about a man who is like doing great, like killing it in his crops. And he's like, you know what I should do? I should build a bigger barn. Like, what should I do with this extra grain, which is, equivalent to cash or whatever. I'm going to build a bigger barn, and then I'm going to sit back and just be like, I'm fat and happy and I've got it all. And then the parable goes that Jesus is like, well, God's going to take your life tonight, which, the whole idea is like, what are you storing it all up for? What are you storing it all up for? Because essentially at some point God could take you like that, and then it's all for naught. So yeah, I agree. I think that there are wealthy people in our Bible. I mean, Abraham is one. Actually, he amasses wealth in Egypt when he sins. I mean, when he's essentially calling his wife his sister, and ends up getting a bunch of cash and slaves and all this stuff. And it's like, wow, okay, great. I mean, Solomon was considered the richest man to have ever lived, and he, wrote most of our proverbs. And I mean, we've got a history of wealth. Yeah. But then we also have Jesus, and Jesus was, I mean, he would say it himself. He was essentially homeless, didn't have a place to lay his head. He was supported by mostly women, but his followers, those who followed him, supported him financially. He never held a job in the kind of traditional sense that we would kind of see that. He was, I mean, kind of a vagabond at some level. And so you've got these polar comparisons. So like, what is it? Like, as Christians, should we pursue financial wealth?
That's phrasing it that way. I feel like it's tough because, and like what you guys were saying, I feel like God can bless you with financial wealth, with money. I think he can use that as sort of an instrument in his mission through you. Like, we see like so many people using their money for good. And what we would think is, hey, you are like, this is where the whole generosity thing comes. You're being generous with your money. You're helping people. You're being there for people. And then in scripture, it kind of talks about the love of money. Like, the love of money is when evil comes from that. And I feel like that's sort of that, excess of anything, even good stuff, becomes an idol, can become evil in your life. And so the love of these things, when we're putting these things like money or anything else up on this pedestal, and when it becomes especially when it becomes higher than God, like it becomes a bad thing. But I don't think money in itself is bad, because God God blesses us in our finances, and he uses that in many different ways. I mean, we've been talking about it at the church of giving and all this kind of stuff, and we've seen that, which is really awesome. So then I feel like kind of along those lines, Chris, that sometimes when we're talking about this, we see, and maybe it's like from certain people, wherever they kind of fall in the in this spectrum of how much they have or how little they have, or that they kind of, some people can see being rich as a sin, as like, oh, you have so much, that's not good. Like, what are you doing? And I feel like it can kind of be seen as bad almost, and especially maybe in the church of like, oh, you're really wealthy, like that's bad. What are we supposed to do with that?
Well, I think it's tough. I think it's tough to that moniker doesn't make sense really biblically, because you had rich disciples and you had poor disciples.
Right.
So like Matthew, the tax collector, is rich.
Mm.
I mean, bro is flush, like he was doing fine. You think about Zacchaeus, the wee little man, who was materially wealthy and actually was sinning, and that was frauding. It was fraudulent in some ways. And in his repentance, he says, I'm going to pay back to everybody what I owe them, double or whatever. Even you begin to look in the new church, like in Acts, when, goodness, is it Lydia who is the dealer in purple, or I can't remember. I can never remember this. Like, is it Lydia? There's three conversions that happen. There's the jailer, there's the demon possessed girl, and then I think her name's Lydia, and she's a dealer in purple. Like, she's rich. She's a businesswoman. Like, she's got cash, and she like starts the church. So I think that there's multiple things in the text that would say you can be a follower of Jesus and you can have material wealth. So I would say, no, it is not evil to have money, but we would be remiss if we didn't mention that Jesus very intently says there are inherent pitfalls when you do have. Like, if we're saying the haves and the have-nots, okay? If you're the one who has, there are some pitfalls in terms of self-reliance. There's some pitfalls in terms of amassing for oneself. There's some pitfalls in terms of just anti-gospel principles that are kind of inherent in that maybe people who are poor don't feel as acutely. So there are warnings to those who are rich. Jesus talks to the rich young ruler, right? Yeah. And he says, hey, I've done all this stuff. Jesus, what do I need to do to inherit the kingdom? And Jesus says, you got to sell everything and follow me. And it says the man went away dejected because he had a great amount of wealth. And then Jesus, I think, says, oh gosh, it's so hard for a rich man to be saved. And so I just think those sorts of stories, they should be warnings. They should not be the reason why you don't strive to by honest means and hard work, put your hand to the plow and do your work and earn. Okay. But it does mean that as you move your way up financially especially in our capitalistic Western society, you got to take those warnings really, like, heed them closely. Because Jesus does say that the love of money, well, I guess it's Paul, but Paul says, what is that? 2 Timothy? Is that where?
1 Timothy
6, that that the love of money is it's like at the root of all evil, lots of evils. And so I'd just be worried about that kind of stuff. The root of all kinds of evils is this like hunting for money, this love for money. Jesus will say you can't love two masters. You can't serve both God and money. That's just, those are some harsh warnings that we would do well to heed.
Yeah. Well, and to go along with that verse, it is interesting how I think people kind of twist that and say money is all evil pretty much. But he says like the love of money, but then it's like the root of all kinds of evil. Like there's so much that the love of anything, any kind of idol can, like, it produces so much more evil than just Oh,
Right.
my
So-
my money.
So, Karina, here's my question for you, especially with your family being so heavily involved in missions, okay, internationally specifically. But talk to me about how maybe you've seen or experienced people who are rich. I mean, comparatively rich. How have you seen rich people embody kingdom principles
Mm.
and essentially heed the warnings of scripture
Mhm.
on the pitfalls of wealth and actually leverage the relative wealth that they have
Mm.
for the kingdom in a Christ-like way?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see it. I think people might not realize, but a lot of missions organizations worldwide are funded by not as many people as you think.
Right.
And so there are people who God has blessed financially, and they give huge chunks of it to, global causes in the church. Even just in our personal life, growing up as a pastor's kid, there was times where people in our church who had money, and maybe not even like excess money, but they had money and they were continuously blessing our family with needs that we had and whatever. So I've seen it in action. And I mean, I could probably sit here for 3 hours and tell
Right.
story after story and not
Let's
get to
do
the end
that.
of the. Yeah.
Well, I do think that that's an important piece to bring up, is that there is a foil for wealth that the Bible offers, and that's generosity.
Mhm.
Now, generosity is a commandment for all Christians,
Mhm.
okay? Right? So like you can be just as in love with money if you've got a little than if you've got a lot.
Mhm.
All right? But for the sake of what we're talking about today, which is the love of money, the excess of money, there is this foil that's provided, and it's giving, it's generosity. So is that how a rich person? Yeah, I mean, I'm going to read this Matthew 19 passage that Jesus said to his disciples, "Truly I say to you, only with difficulty will a rich person enter the kingdom of heaven." Which that's freaky, right?
Mhm.
With difficulty, it's very difficult for a rich person to enter the kingdom. And then verse 24, again, I tell you, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom. And then, the disciples are like, well, then who can be saved?
Mhm.
And Jesus is like, well, with man it's impossible. With God, all things are possible. But is that what it is? Is it just like, hey, if you're wealthy, you just need to be more generous? Is that I mean, I think that's a foil, but is that the only thing? Or is there more going on behind that passage?
I mean, because Paul says that he learned to live with a lot and he's learned to live with a little.
Yeah.
And I think it's being content. I think if you fully realize like your money is not your own, like that you're in that position because God has put you there. And so if he has blessed you and you have an excess of finances, it's because of God's provision. If you are struggling and living, with nothing, it's still because God has you in that situation and he's providing in both. And it creates, that we are all learning different lessons. We're on a different journey. So I think learning to be content and realizing this is not even mine in the first place.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good.
I didn't have anything to add to that. Did you want to keep going?
Well,
with
you had
that?
an I just thought that.
Well,
maybe
I was gonna move on, but
yeah,
if you-
no, I think you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. I think it does come down to a contentment thing, which begins to transcend the amount of money that you have. So I would again say to friends who to most of our church, we are relatively wealthy. Okay, comparatively, we are all doing all right. Even if we're not doing all right, you live in Littleton or Southwest Denver, you're doing all right comparatively. But even with our comparable wealth, contentment is a big issue. That's where the love of money begins to start to rot at you, is because there's this promise that money delivers of contentment, and that is not where it's found. How many times are we going to keep buying things to replace old things, and we think once I get the new thing, then that old thing is no longer in my possession, then I'll be okay, then I'll find happiness, then I'll be content. But that old thing didn't make you content, and the new replacement version of that old thing is not going to make you content either. And so money cannot bring contentment. There's something that must be there that's more. But I would say this to our friends who are, we've got a lot of 20-somethings in our church, a lot of beginning career people. And I think you should want to earn.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know that maybe wealth should be your goal. But I think doing your work in a way that is excellent, that pursues that would pursue your ability to earn money is a good thing. It's a right thing. I think you should earn if you can. Some people are gifted at earning money.
Mm.
That's like a gift. Like
Mhm.
you're able to do that well, and I think that should fuel your generosity and your kingdom mindset, and you're gonna have to work really hard to fight against malcontentment, all that stuff. But I would say, yeah, I think it's okay to want to earn, but you got to keep watching your heart on the
Mm.
love of money.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and then I kind of wanted to go into for those times or those people that that are wealthy, that have much, but maybe aren't that wise with their money. And I'm thinking stewardship as a Christian. What is stewardship? What should it look like in a Christian's life? Who maybe has a lot, but is just not that wise with it, not that good with
Mm.
stewarding
Right.
what God has given them.
so stewardship, Karina already mentioned this,
Mhm.
that stewardship is recognizing that it is not yours, right? So a steward is one who would sit in place of a king in a kingdom, and a steward is not the king, but the steward in lieu of the king being gone or away, or there is no king or he's dead or something like that. A steward steps in the place and manages the kingdom just like the king would, even though he has no legal right
Mm.
to that kingdom. Okay. And that's the same idea here. With our money, we are called to be stewards, good stewards of it. It's as if God owns all of our stuff,
Mhm.
as if it's like his already.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
And we then are called for a season, the life that we have, we are called to manage that and to use that, to invest that, to spend that, to do the things that we think would be most honoring to the king and the kingdom for the season that we are stewards of that.
Mhm.
That's how I understand stewardship.
Mhm.
And so then it does move into the conversation of generosity. It moves into the conversation of provision for one's family. It comes into the conversation of, of being just and right and good in your business practices. I mean, a lot can begin to unfold from the conversation of our stewardship with our finances.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah.
you are a steward of this money.
Mhm.
It isn't yours. Like, I think that's actually the first acknowledgement that will help you unroot the love of money.
Mhm.
Is I'm actually just a temporary, like, I mean, this is what Paul says in 1 Timothy again, 1 Timothy 6. He says, "We brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world." And it's this whole idea that's like, it's not even really yours,
Mhm.
and you can't take it with you. Like, so
Mhm.
enjoy it and invest it, and goodness, be generous with it.
Mhm.
And I said this on Sunday, but that whole idea of it's better to give than to receive is not something that you can believe. Really, I don't think it's something you can really believe until you begin to give,
Mhm.
Mhm.
because it always feels better to get until you start being the giver. And it's just like
Right.
that eclipses the getting
Mhm.
once you actually start giving.
Mhm.
We're running out of time on this one. I think this is a good. We're talking about money and giving. I think this is a good time to talk about what we've been talking about.
Right.
To mention it
Yeah.
at the end of this.
So I think the giving piece, I think we just want to celebrate we
Yeah.
celebrated a little bit on Sunday, the fact that we've been doing this year-end giving, and people have been really generous. I think as of Sunday, we were at like $31,000. But then there's this other piece that I mentioned in second service. I forgot to mention it in first service, but our Thailand missions trip that we've been raising for, there's an additional $10,000 that's been given to that trip.
Mhm.
Right. So like that, we're close to fully funded on that, or ish.
Yeah, I think we are out of the 6 people going, 4 are fully 5, 7 people going. I don't know. Now I'm all confused.
That's
Almost everyone's
awesome.
fully funded. There's just
That's
a
awesome.
couple left. So
Right. So and we're a small
Awesome.
church,
Mhm.
right? Like, this is we're not like some big mega, slinging around dollars. Like, the fact that there's been an additional 41 grand given to our
Mhm.
church
Yeah.
in the last, month and a half
Mhm.
for missions and to help kind of move forward the ministry of Fathom. That's just really encouraging. So I just think this is the reason why Jesus and the New Testament talk about money more than they talk about heaven or hell
Mm.
is because it's a huge deal. It is a huge part of your discipleship. So if you aren't giving, man, I just encourage you to check it out. If you don't know about this, you're wondering about this, you have financial issues, man, talk with us about this. We've got people who are financial advisors that we have in the church. We got people who are like giving specialists in the church. Like, we would love to talk with you about that. You
Mhm.
can always go to fathomchurch.org/give, and that's the place to find all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking about money.
Money,
Everyone's favorite topic.
cash,
Money.
cash. Yeah. If you cash, any cash donations can be handed to me directly. So.
Well, yeah.
That's
No.
actually completely wrong. That's
It's
not at
actually
all. No.
terrible.
That's-
Don't listen to Pastor
Don't give
Chris.
me money.
Yeah, thank you guys for this conversation, and thank you for listening, church. We'll see you next time.